Welcome to a new edition of the Gerety Talks. My name is Luciongay and I am the co-founder of Gerety Awards, the award redefining creative benchmarks by showing the value of the female vision in advertising. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for our weekly Gerety Talks episodes, where we chat with some of the marketing and creative industry's true change makers. Today we have 3 guests coming from the US that work in different agencies and cities. Hira Mohibullah, ECD VMLY&R in Kansas City. Kelsey Webster, Associate Creative Director at BCW Global in Detroit. And Susan Golkin, ECD at Wunderman Thompson, New York. Thanks for joining us today, all, and welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So to start, can you please introduce yourselves and tell us about your role and agency? Hira, would you like to start?
Yeah, well, I mean, you've done the specifics, so I'll just, I guess, talk about my portfolio. I'm based out of VMLY&R's Kansas City office. I work on Smart Water and Minute Maid, and on their global projects. I work on Progressive Insurance and Zespri. And my role with most of this work is to ensure like the larger brand narrative that we're building is kind of in line with the story that we want to tell for the brand, and that the fact that the narrative needs to remain fluid enough to also stretch into what the consumer experience side of it looks like. And that's what I do in a day.
Kelsey?
I'm Kelsey Webster, and I am an ACD at BCW Global, and I have a writing background. And I started back in May of last year, so still kind of, getting in the trenches with everybody. But my day-to-day is still coming up with ideas, but then also helping teams kind of find that nugget and grow it into a large idea.
Susan Golkin, you said before about ECD at Wunderman Thompson, New York. I've been there since January. It's a year. So I've just had my 1-year anniversary there. I run Unilever there. So that's Hellmann's and Vaseline, a little bit of Degree, and some other small projects from them. And also a new assignment that we won from the I think it was last June, which is called the Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism. So that's been a big one. That was an exciting win, and a big launch about to come out in, I think it's end of March with them. So those are my 2 biggies at the moment. And then
okay, and you're working in different cities in the US that I imagine each has their thing to say regarding creativity. Would you say there is something particular or characteristic of each one regarding the creative and advertising scene? What is it that you find most exciting about working there?
I mean, I'll go first. This is my first stint in the US. I moved here in May of 2022. So I don't think I have enough context to be making comparisons as of now, but I think the projects that I'm working on, VMLY&R, and especially like for the pitches that we work on to like pulls from a creative talent from across the US. So I've been working with people from New York, from Atlanta, from Chicago, and like I haven't really noticed a difference in the end sort of creativity that comes out of my sessions with them. So I mean, I might have a different opinion, maybe say in a year, but I mean, I haven't spotted any differences for now.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think before the pandemic, I would have said, I'm from Detroit, I'm a Detroit creative, and it's a city known for hustle and reinvention and innovation. But I think now I work remotely and out of the New York office, and on a day-to-day basis, I'm talking and working with people from all over the country and even all over the world. So I think, every single person brings that unique worldview to every project. And I think that's really what's, making the work better as well.
Yeah, I do think it's all become a lot more global, a lot more. We are a little bit of everywhere. I do think, I'm a native New Yorker. I've been here my entire life. So I will say there is just something about this city that I think it is kind of where advertising began in the United States. And so it is an industry here. It is a thing here. It is Madison Avenue, and you feel it. It is just something about the industry in New York that you feel. I think it's different now. I think talent is everywhere. It used to be that you came to New York to find a lot of talent. I think that has changed post-pandemic because people moved, they went everywhere, and that just happened, and people are not all coming back. But there is just something about New York and the people that are here and the one club and, just the things that are based here that it just makes it an exciting city to be in advertising.
Okay, so maybe this is linked a little bit to what I'm asking you now. So what do you think are the most significant changes happening in the advertising scene at the moment? Either related to the pandemic, which you more or less mentioned, or something else?
Well, I do think part of it is that talent is everywhere now. I don't think it's about people having to go anywhere to find a job. I think you can have people, great brains can live anywhere and be part of your group, your world, you can use their ideas, and that's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's also too, it's, at least for me, no longer an advertising scene as we know it. Like, it's not just the traditional, TV spots. It's anyone can have a good idea and can make a huge impact. So I think there's more of a gray area now than ever, and it's kind of a jump ball.
And then, I think coming out of the pandemic and depending so much on tech to kind of keep our world together and functioning, I feel like AI probably is one thing that's truly taking over the advertising scene. And, like kind of whether it speaks back to how we're personalizing our ads or learning about our audiences, or, even how we're using talent or, brand mascots, and AI versions of them to kind of work better with them. It's just, I think the potential is amazing there. And, there was this other thing that I wanted to also add. I think the way that we're consuming information these days has like completely changed. And this is maybe more so from the perspective of like the younger generations coming up. And, this is something that I read a few weeks back, the fact that, Gen Z isn't Googling things anymore. They're turning to TikTok, to kind of plan their travel, to look for like financial hacks. And I feel like this is something that the advertising industry needs to keep up with. I remember we were trying to kind of, we had a work trip to Istanbul and we didn't know what kind of clothes to take. And somebody who was, a zillennial from my team said, "Oh, just give me a second," pulled up Instagram, geotagged pictures of Istanbul, and we knew what people were wearing there. So, that's a new take on looking at, not looking at weather apps and Instagram for like weather suggestions.
Wow, that's cool. Do you have a TikTok account?
I do, but I only I'm quietly watching. I don't contribute to that world at all.
And what are the biggest challenges? Sorry.
I was going to say that was almost like a new spin on, we used to rely on data to tell us what people were doing. And now all of a sudden it was people were telling us what people were doing, right? They're literally letting us into their homes to tell us everything we used to have to source data to tell us. We can just watch them do it.
True.
And what are the biggest challenges you're facing today within your job, your role, your country, everything?
I think one of the challenges, I think more so recently, is that we live in a world where everything is a little bit under a microscope. And I think to do remark-worthy work, you have to kind of make a splash. So it's, understanding our clients' real fears about, any kind of backlash or canceling out in the world, but also, taking a risk and making a difference or making work that people want to talk about and want to share.
And are clients more scared now?
I would say, yeah, I think everybody is, and it's a real fear, but it's, making sure that we're the experts and we know that the risk is, hopefully going to be worth it.
I think in some ways, though, they've seen the payoff for the risk, though. So in some ways that makes them a little less scared because they've seen the reward now. Before, I think you had to convince clients of the rewards for bravery. And now I think they've seen the sort of economic and PR, just the value of it. So I think I don't think we have to convince them of that anymore, which is helpful.
And sometimes I think we need to also like relook at how we're looking at holistic campaigns. Sometimes like that one PR generating idea like becomes that cornerstone of what your brand's trying to say. And it doesn't have to be like an entire sort of cohesive 360 campaign that does it for you. So kind of just relooking at the campaign model and maybe, you know, coming up with like news builder ideas for brands that could like put them on the map, you know. And then that's something that I try to do personally whenever like I get a brief, like what is that one newsworthy thing that I can do for the brand within it.
And I think when it's right for the brand, it usually doesn't get the cancel, you know what I mean? Usually it doesn't come with the problem. So I think that's also our job, is to make sure that what we're doing feels right for them. Because when it aligns with their purpose, when it aligns with what they're doing, it typically doesn't have a disastrous.
Exactly. Yeah. And it all depends on the client. Some of the big ones, it's like the bigger they are, the bigger the risk, or they see something that a smaller, you know, client has done. And they're like, we want that. And it's like, well, that's not exactly right. Or here's how we can kind of do something for you, you know, but it's just navigating that.
And what projects that you can tell us about are you working on? I know sometimes you can't talk about them. Is there any you can?
Tell you what they are, but tell you we have two biggies going on right now. So one is Hellman's does Super Bowl every year, so we're deep in the midst of Super Bowl, which is another example of how everything is different now, right? Super Bowl used to be you did an ad and then you went to sleep and then it was on. You know, now it's a complete, you know, 360 world. What do we do? And now you do a teaser for the ad that runs, and then the ad runs before the Super Bowl, and then, you know, so it's a whole ecosystem around it. So we're working on that, which is fun. And then the Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism, our launch for them in March is a big effort that we've been working on for a while and is now actually concrete, real, estimate signed, media being bought, like real stuff happening.
I mean, I also can't divulge these specifics, but I'm currently working on a global playbook for Minute Maid and the 2023 global campaign for Smart Water. I'm working with some of the best people at VMLY&R, so it's like really great learning ground for me.
Yeah, same. Without kind of going into too many details, there are some pretty exciting projects coming up, but one that is a pretty powerful pro bono campaign that hopefully is going to help create some societal change.
And Susan, how was your path to working in advertising? Was it something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, but I have really like super humble roots in it. Like I started, I think I'm a bit older than most people on this call. I started back when like I was the receptionist, then I was the creative assistant, then I was, so I you know, that was sort of the path up. You know, I didn't go to ad school. I had like a liberal arts degree, didn't, you know, then went to SVA afterwards. But so, you know, when I came up, my first job was answering hello creative, hello, you know, I answered phones, I did expense reports terribly. So I like every job get here in an advertising agency.
And what about you, Kelsey, Hira?
Mine was a long, winding road. I think I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I had actually gone to a liberal arts school, got a degree in psychology, thought I'd go to law school, and I was admitted. I had taken the LSAT, and then I was like, you know, I don't think I really want to do this. And so kind of the last minute needed a job, and I had a neighbor who worked at a local shop and they needed account coordinators. So again, running job bags back when there were printed, you know, ads up and down between the floors, and kind of got in the door that way and fell in love with the people and the energy and kind of the movement of it. And one day talked to the creative director and I was like, I think I want to try writing. And they were like, okay, you get one shot. And, you know, they were thinking like not going to happen. And I wrote my ass off and like my career depended on it. And it worked out. And they were like, oh shit, like you could actually do this. So for a while, I actually did both. I was an account person during the day, and then I was a writer at night until I made the transition over. And the rest is kind of history.
I mean, I think my journey was more of an unintentional straight path. Like I was always the resident poster maker in class. And, I mean, without really knowing I was being led to advertising as a career though back then. I mean, and then I think I used to have a lot of fun with words and design. So just kind of going through the courses that I wanted to, take up in the art school that I was going to, like communication design made sense. And then it was just, one thing after the other after that.
And Hira, you moved from Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken.
I did.
Was it very shocking to come to the US?
It
What impacted you most at the beginning?
So I came looking for a learning curve. It was a back-breaking steep learning curve. So, I mean, I learned a lot in this past year. I think I'm still learning. But yeah, I think the speed, it was the one sort of big change. I mean, I was still working on like global, campaigns back in Pakistan, but I mean, and they were mostly regional, but like just coming here and kind of getting used to the speed and like the different disciplines and the different sort of departments coming together and making sure that everything's integrated. Like I come from a smaller team, so that was, a huge sort of change for me to, kind of deal with.
And what are the most rewarding things in your job?
I would say probably helping other teams find that kind of nugget or kernel of an idea and helping it grow and then seeing it become this really cool thing that's out in the world. I would say that, and probably just the different challenge that you can come into every day, and it's every client, every project that these teams are coming together and you get to work together to solve a problem, and it's fun. Our work gets to be fun.
And you're like touching people's lives every day. So just kind of knowing that you have the power to move culture in a positive way and then, create that positive social impact has to be that, the most rewarding thing that I do.
And I think, as creative directors and, ECDs, I think, working with the teams is probably the single most, watching them actually achieve that, like working with the team and actually having them like see something through, see them win awards when you actually see them win their first. It's pretty amazing to watch how excited they get and kind of shepherd, do that with them is pretty amazing. And then I also think, we started talking about this and clients and what they're worried about and everything. Like when you actually create a bond with a client and they trust you and they will truly sort of follow where your lead creatively, that's a pretty amazing feeling too, when you know that you've created this relationship with someone and they're actually going to trust you with a lot of money and a business and they're just going to like follow you off into this creative territory. It's pretty amazing that someone's willing to do that.
I love the concept of creative territory. That sounds cool.
A gigantic leap of faith that people are willing to take on, with you. That's a pretty great feeling.
And yeah, so you all mentioned about working with teams. So how do you encourage the people that work with you to give out their creative best? Do you have any tips?
I think it's trying to remove that stressful barrier that can sometimes block creativity. So, trying to have fun, remove the pressure a little bit, remind them, we're not saving lives necessarily. We get to come up with ideas for a living. And that's pretty cool. And then, if that doesn't work, Venmo them for coffee and start over.
I think it's kind of like a two-way street. Like you believe in their vision and then they, in turn they believe in yours. And, and then knowing like that my job is to kind of keep aligning them to the larger brand narrative, but the ideas mostly like come from them. And so that kind of onus and ownership always works.
I think it's hard to have like a way because each of the creatives, if I think about my team and the world, they're all incredibly different. And so it's sort of about kind of each one needs a different way of being motivated. Each person kind of needs a different way of being motivated. So I don't think there's necessarily a way. I think it's actually more about understanding your creative and understanding what they need to help them kind of you're like therapists, right? So you sort of, how can you be the best therapist at that moment and listen and hear and inspire? But also, I think, you talk about creative vision. I think you have to have the vision, because I think by understanding where you think this assignment needs to go, where this project needs to go, having sort of, without it being all flaily, I think is the best thing you can do for them too.
And do you think creativity in advertising is going towards somewhere or heading towards a specific place, or is there like something specific happening, like a prediction?
I think we have no idea. I mean, I think if we've learned now, it's sort of the what is an ad anymore. We have, anything is, it's also open. I wouldn't try to predict that if never. I would get that. So, it's so open.
And I think the metaverse is like this one big nebulous thing right now that I'm very excited about, where it takes us and how we define it ultimately with advertising.
Yeah, I think it's we're getting more and more creative minds, and we're bringing more and more people into the field and into this creative space, I think than ever before. I don't remember ever hearing about advertising when I went to school. And it's like, now we're seeking out these young, creative, brilliant minds. And I think we're working more on societal issues or big impact things that can change the world. And I think that's where creativity comes in and can problem solve.
And a last question that is not a prediction, but wishes. What kind of campaigns or topics would you like to see rewarded in the future at creative festivals?
I think things that move the needle, things that change people's perception, whether that's the perception of themselves or an issue in the world, or even it changes the world. I think things that make a difference. I think there's a time and a place for, innovative, thinking and provocative thoughts. But I think at the end of the day, things that make a difference. Yeah, it's a lofty thing, but yeah.
No, I would agree. Like I think, and this is a discussion that I've had on, many of the jury panels that I've been on, the fact that, how do we award the Grand Prix, right? Should it be like any other idea from advertising, or should it, be one that moves the world? And more often than not, it ends up being the latter. So I do feel, I would like to see more ideas that kind of move the world forward in a positive way. And we're kind of sitting on the cusp of so many like humanitarian and like environmental issues. And I feel like, we have the kind of platform that it would take to, for us to kind of be a change maker in those spaces, and kind of help our brands to kind of carve out their niches in these spaces. And so, kind of working with that responsibility and using it for the greater good.
Yeah, it's hard because I think we do a lot now with, rewarding. We've gone very far into purpose, I think, in a lot of the work. I think, so I have to say, I don't know exactly what category of awards per se, I think that I'd like to see. That's a good question, because I don't know if it's about just being awarded, if it's work that we need to just award, or if it's just groups that we need to necessarily be paying attention to. I mean, I will say, I think that, Gen X is coming up now. We have this generation that is, I think we're in this sort of ageist world. I'd like to see some more work that focuses on that category. And I don't know if that there's necessarily necessarily needs to be an award category, but I think that is a group that is being very much ignored.
Yeah, maybe not awarded, but issues that
be
considered by the industry, or to be seen more in the work or the daily things.
Yeah, because I think it's an issue we have within the industry and an issue in the world at large that might be something we can all address together.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for all your insights and your thoughts, and knowing a little bit more about your job and careers and lives, and wishing you all the best for everything that you do this year.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.